You.
It's 101. We'll give you till 102 to jump on, and then we're going to dive right in because we have a lot to talk about. I'm super excited. And you girls ready? Linz, Hallie?
Ready. I've got my cold brew. I'm ready.
I got my zebra water.
Oh, nice.
Linzee, what do you got?
I have a plain water but look, ready? I should have drank through this.
Oh, that's cute.
There you go. All right, good. Good. Well, welcome everybody. I'm just going to jump in. If you join us late, you can get it back on the replay. So today we are going to talk about you can be anywhere you want to be in 5 years, and what does that look like? And we're also going to talk about this amazing book that I just read this week that I just told Hallie I'm now requiring all my coaching clients and their agents to read this book because it's amazing. So we have a whole bunch planned for you guys. So first, I guess we should start off by introducing ourselves because I think we probably each know different people that are watching, but we may not all know each other. So let me just start off with kind of a little story of how we met. So it was about, I still don't remember what year it was. I think it was about 2012, maybe 13, something like that. We were at family reunion, and we all walked in and we were on a panel together. It was my second time on panel and Hallie and Linzee's first time on panel. And we didn't know each other. And we all went, oh my God, we need to do something about what's happening in the executive assistant world, because we all had big dreams and big visions, and we knew a lot of people needed help, I think, is kind of what our conversation was. So we had this amazing conversation around the lunch table, and then 7 years have gone by since then, and we've all been in the same room. We just figured it out exactly once since then. So we're going to let you guys kind of sit in on our conversation today. So I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself. Linzee, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Linzee Ciprani. I now own my own real estate team. We just completed our second full year in real estate. Prior to that, I was on my own. And then prior to that, when I was on the panel with them, I was helping to run a team and was a listing manager as well. So I own my own team. And then I also own Ciprani Consulting, which we hire and train all things real estate is the easy way to say it. So that's me.
Cool.
How about Hallie?
Hallie.
Awesome. I'm Hallie Warner. I am the Chief of Staff at Adam Hergenrother Companies. I've worked with Adam for 8.5 years now, started at on his real estate team as a listing assistant, and then just kind of continued growing and evolving from there.
Awesome. And we're going to dig into that. I'm excited to talk about that. So I'm Christy Belt Grossman. I was the Chief Operating Officer for the Belt team. I started with them with 2 agents as just the admin assistant and kind of worked my way through to help grow the team. And then 3 years ago, I opened my own teaching and coaching and training company, and I replaced myself a year ago and do that full time now. So let's dig in. I want to dig in first to what you did prior to the time we all met, because I get that question from agents a lot, like where can I find an admin assistant or an EA or whatever role it is. So Hallie, what did you do before you joined Adam?
Yes, I'd only been working out of college for like 3 years when I met Adam. So about 1.5 years of that, I was a marketing and PR assistant at a nonprofit. And then for about 1.5 years, I was the executive assistant to a principal at a large public high school. So
similar kind of career track, but totally different worlds.
Yeah.
Nonprofit to entrepreneur.
Nonprofit and education, totally different than business.
Totally different, but probably a lot of similar skills.
I learned some really key like foundational skills like admin and like office skills that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, even like as simple as using a copier and how to navigate email and that sort of stuff. But as far as leadership and business, I didn't learn any of that until I started working with Adam.
Awesome. And then Linzee, what did you do before? So I want to go to the before, so we'll get to the what you did in real estate, but before you joined the team that you joined.
Yeah. What's funny? I was working for the Society of Motion Pictures and Television Engineers. So super strange world. It's a bunch of engineers that have come together almost like Facebook groups. And they're the ones that create all of the amazing, 3D movies and all that stuff. And so we were their community, really. And so I was somebody who recruited for them. And then I also managed all of our conventions and we had huge events like KW does. So I would run all of those all over the world and did all the regional events as well. And so, did that. And then prior to that, I was in insurance and title insurance. So.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Title and then back into real estate. That's how Matt and I knew each other, as we were in the same title company. And we knew each other from before that too, but we worked there, and then he came after me to bring me into real estate.
Huh. Awesome. Cool. And then my background was 7 years or 10 years actually in the mortgage business. So I did every single job from processing to closing to underwriting to operations manager, and then I managed 7 offices in 3 states for a mortgage company. So kind of expansion before we knew it in real estate. We had it in the mortgage business. Yep. So let's talk about kind of career path of, okay, in 2012, we all met because we were basically EAs on a real estate team. So what were you, Hallie, what were you doing? And then let's say what we were doing, how did we evolve to what we were doing now? And then let's also clarify in there, we get a lot of questions of what's the difference between an executive assistant and a director of operations and an assistant executive and a personal assistant and like all that stuff. Maybe we can shed some light on that. So when I met you, you were Adam's EA for his real estate team in Vermont, I think?
Yes.
And then take us forward.
Sure. So when I was in that role, I think it was fairly similar to what we now call the DOO role, right? For the most part, I was heavily on the listing management side, but I also really helped him with his business, whether it was creating all the operations manuals and checklists and helping oversee our courier and our other listing person and our virtual assistant and checklists and blah, 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 all that stuff. And like started doing some of the team branding and helped with the onboarding buyer's agents and all of that stuff. So that's what I did for about 1.5 years, I want to say. And then Adam started getting out of production about 1 year after I joined. And at that point, we started expansion. So that was kind of the first thing that we did. And we took all of the stuff that I had created with Adam and his wife had created previously. And then that's when we first did our first expansion team. And then about probably 6 months to 1 year after that, we actually hired a director of ops for the expansion business, the real estate business. And that's when I started morphing more into outside of real estate, what you would call an executive assistant, where I wasn't actually operating in any one business and I did not actually operate any businesses. I worked just with Adam closely on whatever projects he was working on, helping with the leadership team, recruiting, hiring, setting up new businesses.
Much more true to the actual definition of executive assistant. You're the assistant to the executive, right?
Yes, not working in any one business,
right.
Which over the years I found was actually not my strength anyway, and I'm glad I never went down that path. And about 5 years ago, I did do all of that research about where I wanted to go with Adam in the future. Did I want to become the COO of Adam Hergenrother Companies or the COO of Hergenrother Realty Group, or what else was my option? So that's when I started really learning about the chief of staff role and realized that that's actually what I've been doing to a certain degree, as well as being his EA and his PA. So and then again, right, over the years, I started getting rid of some of those pieces, and now I can just be fully in that chief of staff role.
So I love that you just said that I did all the research, because I think a lot of people come into this role and they're not clear. One of the purposes of today was kind of to illuminate that there can be many different paths, that it's an amazing opportunity to come into this role and then create the world that you want. So what you just said is you basically went and looked at what world could I create. Tell me, like, what kind of research did you do? Like, what did that look like?
I did a lot of online research, but then I read a bunch of books on the chief of staff role. I don't remember what books I read, honestly, because it was such a long time ago, but I read a lot more of like the operational books, like directors of ops and COO type books and what they actually were doing in the business. I read a lot of white papers on the chief of staff role, started really following. Actually, I did a lot of research on LinkedIn and would go look at COOs to large organizations and chief of staffs to large organizations and like what they were doing. And I was like, oh, what that COO is doing, that's not for me. But what this chief of staff is doing, that's where I need to be.
I love that. It's really purposeful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. All right, so Linz, you want to take us through from I met you and you were, I forget what your title was. Were you listing manager for the FedEx team?
Right. Well, that's the funny thing about me, actually. I went in there, it was more going to be an operations manager job. That's what we had on the offer letter, right? And when I went in, almost immediately, he had a transaction coordinator and a marketing person, and both of them split. So I became all of the things. We dabbled in a lot of virtual assistant stuff because that was really big. Like my Outdesk, I think we were one of their very first clients. So we were dabbling in that to see if we could, gain some more momentum, gain some more money, and then build from there. And so the beautiful thing about that is it made me who I am today, right? I had to do all the jobs. I had to figure it out on my own. And I mean, Matt was at that point where he wasn't even really sure what everybody was doing. He had no idea how to do a green sheet, right? So I had to jump in and really learn all that, which is awesome. And so at some point, we sat down and we were basically like, well, what do you want to do? How do we get you out of the business and really start to grow this thing? And Matt decided he really didn't want to do any of the things. He didn't really want to do anything except for go on a listing appointment and get it. And he was at like 98%, for a conversion ratio when he would go out there. And so I quickly became the listing manager. And I think I was holding that role as well as the operations. By the time I saw you guys, I had hired my own transaction coordinator at that point. And so, we were starting to grow, and really what happened is he'd go on a listing appointment and then they got Linzee. And so I would say, listen, you want to talk to me. I'm so much better. Come on, it'll be great. So I negotiated all the contracts. I negotiated the inspections, took it through to the end, and we just kept building from there. So.
And then you transitioned off the team and became an agent, right?
I did. I had my first baby and felt like it was time to kind of be there and be a little more present and do real estate on the side. And before I knew it, I had a team of my own there too. So yeah, it's been a crazy transition.
And then you grew this other company that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to go into all that. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I want to kind of so just the quick and dirty of the path, and then we'll go back into how we created the path.
Yep. So part-time, went to be an agent, figured I could close some deals on my own. Closed about 16 deals in my first year. And then because of that, and people knew what I had done with Matt, a lot of people came to me and asked me if I would run their companies. Instead of doing that, I created what I always say by accident, Ciprani Consulting. And I said, well, instead of doing that, I'll just hire somebody and I'll train them and you can pay me like $500. It'll be great. And so I
get her for $500 anymore though.
It's not that cost anymore. But yeah, so I would recruit mostly admin and director of operations, and I came up with a system and a process to take them through their first 6 months because I knew that, really truthfully, for any admin going in there, you are going to be doing less work in the beginning, even though you feel crazy and feel all nuts. You do less work then than you will be doing 6 months from now. So I, put a program together where I felt like, hey, let's put all the processes and procedures in place so that you've got all those things laid out and they're all ready to go so that, all you have to do when you go under contract is turn on an action plan that leads you through the process, and you can raise your hand and go, I don't know what this is, or I don't know what this is, which is far easier than just having it blow up in your face and not knowing what it is at the time of closing. So
I love that. So now you've got to both businesses. That's amazing.
Yep.
So my path was slower than you guys. So I kind of failed through I'm the assistant doing everything, the listings, the marketing, the contract to close, the putting systems into place, the taking all the settlement statements out of boxes and creating a database, like everything from scratch. And then through 23 years, and I think our lunch was just so instrumental to me of realizing there's a lot of work that has to be done in our area of the world, the EA world, or whatever you want to call it, because there's a lot of us that have big aspirations and aren't really quite sure how to get there. So we had 10,000 realtors in our board of realtors, and there were 3 assistants. So there was nowhere for me to go for help. So I wanted to be that person to provide that help, just kind of like you did, Linz. So that's where my teaching, I taught for many years and coached and mentored for many years unofficially, and 3 years ago decided, like, let's just do this. So I want to dig back into, if I'm sitting here and I came on this call because it says in 5 years you can be anywhere you want to be, like, let's talk about that. Like, did you guys always know where you were going and then just go there? Like, what did that look like? What was it that spurred you? Like, Linzee, you were on a team, you were on a team that was, all of us were on Gary Keller Mastermind teams. So we were all on really successful teams. Like, what was it that spurred you to go, all right, well, I've been on this listing manager side, like, I want more, I want something different. Like, did you know where you were going?
No, and you know what's funny? I even remember, I think I remember having a conversation with the three of us where we were like, what's your disc? Because we all knew we were a little off. And yet we're all on panels. And I had the beginning part of my like admin career, I was like, yo, my AVA, which everybody, that's before the KPA came out, but I was like, my AVA is weird and my disc is not right. And I felt really weird about that. So in a really strange way, I was an entrepreneur sitting in an, what I'm going to call an admin role. But man, if I had really understood who I was, I think Matt and I could have created a lot of really amazing things. And a big part of my problem is I didn't really know who I was, and I was trying to shove myself in this box, and trying to, but at the same time still going, I'm not good at all these things. So then I would hire Rachel, who's still with him and killing it and running his business, but I would hire those people to help me in my shortcomings. And so, I kind of say all of that because I think we get really trapped in, hey, you're supposed to be this, instead of going, man, you are talent, and we need to figure out how to make my world bigger for you. And so that's something I've become really passionate about with my people, because, I want to look at them and their personality and go, hey, like, how do we partner together? Like, how are we in business together, as opposed to,
I love that. So I think that's a great piece of advice for people sitting on the call is, if you're trying to figure out, I can be anywhere I want to be in 5 years. Do you know yourself? Like you said, I didn't know who I was. I very much resonated with that. I remember sitting in 2013, I went out a day early to family reunion so that I could meet with Seth Campbell and have my ABA validated. And I will tear up right now. I message him like once a year at that time, and I'm like, you changed my life, because I, for the first time, realized who I was. And I realized the same thing, why I was feeling some discomfort in my role, because I wasn't quite a fit. That resonate with you?
So I think I am a DC, and I have that weird AVA too, right? I think the really low, what is it, vector 3, we're all like ones, I'm sure, on that, right? So
1 with 2 asterisks.
Yeah, and I'm a 1 asterisk. So yeah.
Like all OPs.
Yeah, right. So Linzee, I thought what you said was actually interesting, because you said you really like that you're an entrepreneur, right? That's, who you are, or you lean more in that direction. I think that I almost want to be that entrepreneur, but what I actually realized probably the past year and a half is that is not me. But I'm also not really like I don't really want to work in the business either, right? So that's a weird like in between. But I did realize that I'm definitely most in my flow when I am and can be super autonomous, have a lot of freedom in my work, but that I'm doing it for somebody else who has a bigger vision than I do. And for me, that's Adam. And I mean, I've told him this before too. Like, I'm pointing that way because his office is right there. That if I didn't do what I do with him and I wasn't partnered with him, I would do the same thing with some other really extraordinary leader, because I found that is what's the best role for me, is doing what I'm doing right now. And so not being
you're sort of in a hybrid, more of an entrepreneurial role almost. So you operate with the mentality of an entrepreneur, but you operate within the business of someone else owning it.
I don't have that risk tolerance to go do it completely on my own. And I like having that vision that's bigger. I have a pretty big vision and I get to do really cool things here, but his vision's just a little bit bigger than mine, right? So I love that I get to operate within his world, but be able to be super creative and also just do what I love.
I love that. I hope a lot of agents come on and listen to this later and hear that. And we're going to get into those questions when we talk about founder and the force multiplier. So I'm going to ask a couple more questions about the I can be anywhere in 5 years, and then we're going to go into the book thing. So if I'm sitting and listening right now, some of the questions that I got were, what action steps could I take to be anywhere that I want to be in 5 years? I think all of us, if we look back to 5 years ago, we probably would not have known we were going to be here. But I also think 5 years ago, we all knew that we weren't going to be in the same place that we were in.
So true.
Like, none of us. Yeah. So what are some steps that we can do? What's some advice you would give people? Maybe any pitfalls to avoid or things that could accelerate their growth? Any of those. I know I threw out a bunch of questions at one time. So jump in and attack whichever question you want. Linz?
Yeah, you know what? I'll start. I think... getting clarity on yourself is really important. And so I hired a coach right away when I got out. It was really important. And we have coaches on this call. That is not me, by the way. I'm a trainer. You can call them. But I really genuinely believe that like having a coach really, it just helped me figure out who I was. It was really instrumental in my growth. And then really going into I started to dive into some Tony Robbins stuff, and I have not done this, but I know so many people that have gone to Landmark Forum and really, or maybe it's your church and meeting with your pastor, but I think there are numerous places that we can go to really understand ourselves and understand where our gifts are. But more than that, this you could call me for, let's look at your KPA and let's look at your disc and let's really understand, where your flow state is, what gives you joy and what's exciting for you. I can tell you that watching a brand new admin, start to understand what the processes and procedures are and light up when they finally get things, was super energizing for me. And, finding the right talent, somebody to go in and run somebody's team or to go hire a team leader, all across the country, though, that's fun for me. And I've started to really hone in on what excites me. And I can now tell ooh, I just really had fun doing that. And
you may not be doing those things full time, but I think all those things that you just mentioned, that's your full-time world now that you've created. But even when you were on Matt's team as a listing manager, you were still doing pockets and moments of those things.
Oh yeah. When I hired Deneen, who's also still there, one of the best listing agents I've hired, I was so excited because I was like, she's going to kill it. I know she's going to go kill it. I knew Rachel was going to be awesome. And that brought me so much joy. And so just tapping into those things, you might be sitting there making a brochure, you might have just gotten 40 leads off of an amazing Facebook ad. You might have a marketing thing going on in you, and so really starting to tap into that and understand what I'm going to call your flow state is very important.
Love that. Mm-hmm. Hallie, what advice would you give people who want to be somewhere in 5 years? You can be anywhere you want to be. What were the things that you did or that helped you?
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say what Linzee did a little bit about just getting really aware of who you are, of course, right? I mean, it's so key, and I wish I had done it sooner. I only feel probably the past year and a half, 2 years have I really felt I actually understand who I am, because my head was just down for 6 years, just grinding. And I would definitely encourage people not to do that, and make sure you're picking your head up a little bit and give yourself some space away from the business. I mean, do I regret it? No, because it did get me where I am, and I would never take any of that away. However, I try to pay attention to that within other people so that they don't necessarily get in that trap that I did. And then
I think that's really real, though. I guarantee you almost everyone sitting on this call does that, because all of us who are EAs are doers. and we want to help other people, and we're just head down busting our rear ends.
Yeah. And that's what I thought success was, right? I thought success was fulfilling, 80-hour work weeks for 5 years and showing up and doing everything and not asking for help and not, and being, I can do it all myself and I don't need anybody else, and it'll all be fine because I'm strong like that. Right. Turns out I really wasn't as strong as I thought I was. So actually one of the things for growth is asking for help, being okay with that. In fact, when over the years, every time I've done that, the business has grown, believe it or not, right? Because I can't do it by myself. So every time we either hired somebody or we outsourced something, I became a better leader and the business grew. So I would say that. And for me, it always goes back to a lot of research and books. I mean, that's where I get a lot of my growth stuff from, is research, books, training.
So give us what couple books would you recommend that people read if they're in that state? Yeah,
well, the one I'm kind of, I actually need to pull it back out. I just finished reading it recently, but The Surrender Experiment or The Untethered Soul, anything by Michael Singer. I'm really kind of diving back into some of that stuff. I'm doing an online course with that Michael Singer did. Oh gosh, what else? I honestly can't think of anything else really off the top of my head. I'm really bad at doing that.
I know, you read the book and then you're on to the next book.
I know, yeah. I pick like one thing up from it, but I don't necessarily remember the whole. But
I feel like rocket fuel, the one thing like this.
No, you know what? I'm now convinced to skip rocket fuel and go straight to this one.
I mean, I loved rocket fuel too. Yeah.
I mean, I read them both, but this one just really, I don't know why, this one really resonates, and we're going to jump to that in just a second. I would add for me that my path to being where I wanted to be in 5 years accelerated drastically when I surrounded myself with higher-minded, higher-thinking people who were had my best interest at heart and who pushed and challenged me. So I sat down, I think it was in the summer of 2017, and I knew that I wanted to grow into something else, and I wrote a plan out. It was a 5-year, is that your phone, Linz? I wrote a 5-year transition plan, and one of my inner circle friends said, one simple question: why so long, Christy? And I'm like, well, dang, that's a really good question. I don't know. Let me think about that. And literally within 6 months, I had replaced myself, called Linzee and had 2 people hired and replaced myself so that I could do what I wanted to do full time. So the people you surround yourself matter, and being really purposeful with that. And I think you guys, for me, were some of those first people. Like I was like, oh, they're like me, like they're drivers. They think big. I want to be around people like that all the time. And I think we have that in our company. We have so many awesome networks and ways to meet each other, whether it's in our Facebook group here or at family reunion or training or masterminds. And I think a lot of people, you're the top people in your market center, right? Your teams, many of the teams in this EA Facebook group are the top teams in their market center. So you may need to reach outside of that. So that for me was really, really important. All right, I know we're half an hour in, so I'm going to jump into the book.
And Christy, let me just tell you too, if we have time at the end, there's some questions popping up too.
Oh,
that
good.
Off if we want to.
Awesome. Should we throw them in now or go into the book?
Yeah, go into the book, because I think specifically the one that's on there
will come out.
Might get, yeah.
All right, so the book is called The Founder and the Force Multiplier. We all know what a founder is. Hallie, tell us kind of about the book, how it came to be, and what is a force multiplier?
Cool. So the book has been a bit of a process for the past 7 months, maybe a year. Last year, Adam writes a blog called herglife.com, at herglife.com. So we were paying attention to, all of the people who keep going to the blog, right? There was 40,000 people last year from 139 different countries. And every single blog that was the most popular, thousands and thousands and thousands of views, were all the EA and executive related ones. And we've done like maybe 4, I want to say 3 or 4, and they all were like so popular. So we're like, okay, there's clearly a conversation here that needs to be had. Let's do a book about it. We had known we wanted to write a book, and then we actually had planned on doing it on a different topic. But then this just kept surfacing, and we're like, okay, this is the one that needs to happen right now. So that's how that started. And of course, I've been passionate about this topic for years. I network in those groups all of the time. It's kind of my thing. I love it. And so Adam was like, yeah, let's do the book about that. So that's what we did. And as far as a force multiplier, I believe that it's an individual who helps another achieve more than they could on their own. For me, I like to compare it to, it's like one job or one brain, and it's 2 halves of one whole.
Yeah, I love that. We talked about that previously. So you look at this as it's actually just one role being done, different parts being done by each person,
yeah,
which is really different from how we kind of look at it on a real estate team.
Yeah, totally. So with our, like for our executive assistant, for example, Amy, her job is, well, that's actually not even a great analogy. I was going to say it's really now, because we have her, it's all 3 of us have one main like role to accomplish, and it's making sure the vision is communicated, that roadblocks are removed for our leadership team, and making sure the clarity and direction of the organization is carried out, right? Mm-hmm. We just have 3 different means of doing that. But I don't work on any one particular company. I don't necessarily work on one particular project. It's just,
right,
Adam's working on it, I'm working on it.
And you're more of a strategic leader versus, is it Amy that's your EA? Amy is more of a tactical leader. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe the 2 roles when they both exist together. When there's only one of those people in an organization, it gets very murky. But when you have both of those people, yes, the chief of staff is typically more strategic, working on strategy, definitely working more on the business, where the EA is hands-on, tactical, running the day-to-day stuff.
So in our real estate world, many of us who are probably on this call are kind of straddling both lines, and we're doing some tactical, some strategic. If you're on just an assistant with a single agent, you may be a little bit more on the tactical side, just the day-to-day, making things happen. And as your team grows, you kind of evolve into the strategic side, I think, is kind of how I look at it.
I totally agree. Or you decide that you actually love the tactical, and you need to say, I want to stay in this place. And then you need to make sure that you tell your mega that they need to go hire somebody else to help run the team.
I love that, because actually, I don't remember if that was in the book or when we were talking, because at a certain point, Adam hired you to be, or hired someone else to be the EA. And then you were listing manager?
Yes.
And you guys flipped.
Yes. Yeah, because she really loved working with clients. She loved handling the transactions. I mean, if I didn't have to talk to a client in my life, I would be very happy. So he kind of picked up on that, and I'm really glad that happened. And I talked to so many EAs outside of the real estate world who are kind of starting to see that this chief of staff role, right, in the corporate environment is becoming much more well-known. And they're like, okay, I think that's my next step. But then when I actually talk to them and I tell them what I kind of do every day, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I actually love handling the events and working with our other, our key stakeholders and the employees more, on a day-to-day basis. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally cool. You just got to know what you want to do.
Exactly. I love that. I think that's a really great point, because I think we're all driver personalities. Lindsay, you're an ID, but you still have your D in there, right?
Flipped.
Are you a DI? Okay, so we're all Ds. So I want to make that point clear, that if you're sitting on this call and you're thinking, well, that's not me, the point isn't to do what we did. The point is that you can create your own life by design. You can create the world that you want it to be, and to get clear on what that is and figure out how to get there and then go after it and get it. So let's talk about growth. One of the questions that came up with you, Hallie, in the book was what was your growth path? What did you do on your own kind of to grow into being a force multiplier? And then what did you and Adam do together? What did your growth look like together? And tell us about that.
Sure. So we do so much training, and I do a lot of mentoring with Adam, and he is always raising his own leadership lid. And right now he's doing a lot of spiritual work. So that's trickling down into stuff that I'm starting to do. He's does transcendental meditation. So do I. He is taking this Michael Singer course. I'm taking the Michael Singer course. So a lot of the growth, we really are growing together. I think we've grown tremendously together as leaders. And then he's definitely ahead of me on the health and fitness. That's my next challenge. But on the spirituality stuff, we're really working on that together too.
Well, can I dig into what you just said? You said Adam does a lot of mentoring with me. What does that concretely look like?
Yeah, gosh, that's such a good question. I think it's our weekly meetings. I actually ask a ton of questions, or when I'm noticing things, when I'm picking up on things that he's doing as a leader, I will specifically ask, why did you make that leadership decision? What was the thought process behind that?
Love that.
Why are we holding on this? Why are we not because I trying to disagree with his decision, but because I actually just want to learn his thought process so that the next time I can just make the decision and he doesn't even have to do that. That happened.
So really, I love that you said that. I think that's super, super important, because what you just said basically is you're teaching yourself how to think like Adam. Yes. And you're more focused on how to think than how to do. Yes.
And it's so funny when you actually say that to me, because I didn't really know I was doing that, because it's very unintentional, but that's exactly what I did. And I did that from day one. I remember as a listing assistant, I bought MREA. I bought literally a transaction management book, because I was like, I got to learn all this stuff. And then I really studied Adam and his leadership from the beginning and in the business. So those are the things that I really, books, podcasts, training. I wanted to learn everything I possibly could about the business so that he never had to tell me anything, really. I wanted to learn as much as I could, so I would just know before he had to say anything.
Linz, do you want to add anything to that growth section?
I feel like that the question that's up here right now goes along with this. Did you and Adam ever have times where you just didn't agree on the strategy or the way forward? And if you did, how did you get through that? Because this person's basically asking, when you and your rainmaker or your leader aren't on the same page, what's your strategy to not get frustrated or discouraged?
Yeah, so, we disagree daily, weekly, on multiple things. And I'll always just tell him. I will, respectfully, of course, but I will tell him what I think is maybe why we shouldn't go down that path and why, maybe offer a different alternative. And then here's the thing, at the end of the day, it is his business. So if after we've had that conversation and we've disagreed, I commit to whatever it is that the final decision was. Often we come together on something, so it's not always one way or the other. We figure out a path forward together. But sometimes I'll go with him, and here's the thing, sometimes he'll just go with my decision. I can think of one example, I don't know if this ties in, but he wanted to write a blog post about something that week on a topic that I thought was not appropriate to write a blog post on. And I told him why, and we did not write the blog post on that. We went forward with something else. So, not like it was an inappropriate topic. Believe me, it's not like, it was just, we didn't have enough facts. We weren't speaking from experience. I just was like, we don't need to have our voice out there about that particular thing. So we didn't. So just have the conversation.
I love that. One of the couple things I highlighted in the book, Adam says it, I think, 3 different times in the book. Hallie has been by my side in business each step of the way, pissing me off by challenging my thinking. And he says that same phrase about you challenging his thinking multiple times in the book, to the point that he values it very much that you do that, even though it does piss him off.
Yeah.
So I love that you have the strength to do that. And I think a good leader wants his ideas challenged, because you can lead together better that way. That was a great question from whoever asked that. Linz, are there any other questions, or should we keep going?
Nope, you can keep going, unless, Jordan, if you want to throw a question up about what you wrote, that'd be cool too, but keep going.
Awesome. So I want to talk about communication, because I think all 3 of us have seen that, because we all coach and teach and train in different capacities. And communication seems to be probably the foundational challenge that EAs and rainmakers seem to have in our business. So Hallie, what are 3 things that you and Adam are committed to, kind of that are keys to your successful communication? It could be philosophies or tools, or maybe you meet once a week or whatever. What are some things that people on the call can take away and go back and do that will change their communication?
Yeah, one of the first things that I did this very early on too was access to his email. So I read all of his, obviously see all his incoming emails, right? And at this point, anything that goes into his email, he actually has to pay attention to. We filtered everything else out at this point. But I read all of his emails. I see what's coming in. But here's the thing that I took it a step further. I actually read all of his sent emails and most of his trashed emails as well, because I want to be able to see, again, most of the time I know what's happening, but I know what's going on without him having to tell me. I know that he sent that email to that person, or I see that person emailed in, and then I just will sometimes give him a little piece of information that he may not have had, so that when he responds, then he has that information, or I tell him I already took care of that, or hey, actually this person just posted that on Facebook, so that could be why that happened. I just find that I've been able to stay on top of it. And again, we totally cut down on me having to ask a bunch of questions because I already have all the information. Yeah. And I learn how he communicates. The second thing is we do weekly one-on-ones. We do our 411 every week. We meet for 30 minutes every Monday. And we do our 5 daily accountability questions at the end of every day by email.
Do you show up for that meeting regularly?
What's that?
Did he always show up for that meeting regularly? Your
30-minute one-on-one? Yes.
Because I know in the book he says, I think it's him actually, not you saying this, never cancel your meeting with your assistant.
Yeah, he never, I mean, we had to reschedule it from time to time, yes, but we always make sure it's for me, that is the most important meeting of the week. And I'd like to think that that's also his most important meeting of the week, because that's when we set the direction and then we just go make things happen. And we reprioritize if we have to.
Love that. And you keep it to 30 minutes.
Yes, 30 minutes. We don't need long. Now, it was an hour a couple of years ago. I would say we did an hour because we were really talking more about like, are we going to start a new company? Are we not? Like things like that. Now we know what we're doing and we're like, we just go and it's just a quick touch base, or like Tuesday or whatever day it was. Because we didn't have our meeting on Monday and Tuesday. It ended up being a, hour long. We had an hour and a half blocked because we hadn't seen each other for 2 weeks because we were on vacation. So it ended up being about an hour-long conversation about spirituality. So that happens too.
I love that. That's great. Linz, do you have anything? Because I know you see this a lot as in hiring and training and people in their first 6 months.
Yeah, what's funny is even now that I'm like what you're going to call the Adam, but I never really see myself that way. But I even have times when I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to push this off, right? Because things come up within your business. And, but it is 100% the most important thing that I can do is actually sit down with them. And a funny thing too, is sitting down and actually training them how to think like me. Like, I love everything that you just said. And that's when I worked with Matt, I parked myself right near him so I could hear how he talked. And I tell people all the time, I swear I'm his parrot. Like, there are times when I'm like, oh, I just Matt FedExed you. Like, because, he has scripts that he would use over and over again. And they were embedded in me, and it's made me a better person and a better leader. And so I would say being able to be close to, the person that you are working with and really understanding everything about them. But even more, having a desire to do that is really important. And I think, Hallie, you would say that you wanted to do those things and you wanted to think like him. You want to understand how he ticks. That's important.
I was going to say, he never asked me, I don't think he's ever asked me to be in a meeting, ever asked me to listen in on his phone calls, ever asked me to read his emails. I just did it. And just told him, this is what I'm doing and I'm coming to this meeting.
Yeah. And then that comes through loud and clear in your book, that this role is a leadership role, and being a leader means being proactive, not being reactive. Yeah. It means asking for what you need, and providing solutions, not coming with just challenges. I love all of what you wrote about that in the book. So let's talk about that for the Rainmakers who are on the call. What is a force multiplier looking for in their founder? Like, what were you looking for? Did you know what you were looking for when you joined Adam? Were you purposefully looking for that, or did you stumble into it and now you have clarity?
I definitely stumbled into it and now I have clarity. And he's such a stark contrast from the leader I was working with before, who I knew was not the right leader for me, but I just didn't know that there was really an alternative. He was very passive. He was more reactive, was not aggressive, was not an intense person, was a slower pace, like all those things, but I didn't realize that the exact opposite of that until I met Adam, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, now we can actually do something and get somewhere. So I think force multipliers are looking for opportunity for growth. They're looking for somebody to challenge them with tasks and responsibility, but also to challenge their thinking, to encourage them to be a leader, to push them outside of our comfort zone, to question the decisions, that they're constantly raising their leadership lid, because a really strong force multiplier is going to need a very, very strong leader, and gives them a lot of autonomy and freedom.
Love that. Linz, do you have anything you would add to that?
No, that's awesome. No, let's keep going.
I think it totally captured it all.
Yeah.
I hear the reason why I asked that question is, as I'm traveling around and I'm teaching and I'm coaching, and I bet you guys hear the same thing. I have a lot of agents that come to me and they're like, I want to hire someone like you, or I want to hire someone like Hallie or like Linzee. Like, how do I find that person? Mm-hmm. And the first question I always ask is, are you the person that person would want to partner with? And so a lot of people, I know the three of us are a little bit outside the norm for the typical EA with our behavioral profiles. And that can be very attractive to an agent who is also a D or an I, because they're looking for someone to go really fast. And my question always back to them is, well, you're looking to go fast. Are you ready to go as fast as they're ready to go? Because you could hire Linzee, or you could hire Hallie or me, and we could do the role for 6 months or maybe a year. But if you're not growing fast enough for us, we'll probably be on to the next agent.
Totally.
Is that kind of your experience too? So
yes.
Yeah, I think their leadership lid is probably the most key important factor to the success in their hire.
Totally.
What should a leader be looking for in their force multiplier?
Oh gosh. Okay. I did make notes that I didn't forget. Somebody who is a driver, professional, a leader, somebody who is a strategic thinker and a creative problem solver, somebody who has exceptional communication skills, written and verbal, resourceful, a little bit of a Jack or Jill of all trades, someone who's fast-paced, intense, responsive, adaptable. Those would be the key things, I think.
I would agree. Linzee, you've done some studies, I think, of the success in this role and the behavioral profile, and what have you found on that?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. So we've started charting all of our hires, because we have a lot at this point, and have really started diving into what's working and what's not. And I will say that it's funny. There's a part of me that wants to share a lot of that data right now, and then there's a part of me that feels like it'll pigeonhole me into, like, I have to find this person every time, because that's not the truth, because it is really truthfully finding talent and then helping them grow. But I will say that wherever I hire a DC, they stick around. It doesn't matter if it's a team leader position, an executive assistant. I mean, they are sticking it out. I think real estate is a interesting world, right? We're in these big businesses, and yet we're small businesses within there, and we're competing against each other in the same office, in the same areas, but cooperating with each other and having fun with each other. It's just a very odd world. And I think the DC personality, just hard charging and thorough, and understands all the things they need to in order to push forward. So, I mean, we're seeing that a lot. And then in the KPA,
responsiveness probably really high, I would guess.
Responsiveness is really, really high. Intensity is a good thing. There's a number of other things too. The problem solving components are a big thing too. But for me, especially in the admin role, responsiveness is by far probably the biggest thing that I need to see. And I don't know that we can hire a lot of people that have really low responsiveness. They have to be super responsive to clients and everybody, because that high D, hard charging personality, that agent, if they see an email that comes through that comes to them and to the admin, and the admin doesn't answer it, like I literally can only give my people like, I've tried to give them like a few hours before I respond, and then I am like
just eat away at you. Yeah.
It's so funny. So true.
And
I would
so
add one more quality for what the leader should be looking for in the force multiplier, and that I think is no ego. Somebody who is very happy riding shotgun, that they are a leader in their own right, but they don't have to be the person up front and center getting all of the attention, and they're happy for their leader or their team to succeed and to be a leader kind of behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. You're not always behind the scenes because you are a leader, but I think it's just that lack of ego is really important in that role.
So true. I love that one. That I think is so key.
Yeah. And I think you guys are both humble and confident at the same time. Like you have to be very confident, but it's not about you. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Do we have any other questions? Did anybody post any questions? Do we still have people on the call?
We do. We have lots of people on there, and they're saying great advice. You know, I have a question because I think a lot of people really need to hear this, and I don't know that we've actually fully gotten there. But Hallie and Christy, I'd love for you to answer this too, because while personality and you know who you are as a person plays a role in how successful you're going to be, none of us started out really, really well. And I hear from agents all the time, like, she's just not thinking like me, and he's not doing this fast enough, and whatever. And for me, expectations are a really big thing that's missing, especially in real estate agents, right? They don't sit down and say, these are the things I expect. And as soon as we don't do something right, they don't sit down and go, hey, let's course correct. Next time, maybe we can do it this way.
Because they're not sitting down. The problem is that I see they're in so much pain when they make the hire that they just think the problem's going to be fixed in 30 days or, like, God forbid we go through a 90-day plan. Mm-hmm. And the biggest complaint I get from all the people that I mentor and talk, I literally take calls on a daily basis, is they can't get their leaders to sit down with them on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. And agents, if you are sitting on this call and you are canceling meetings or not showing up to meetings, not being committed to meetings, you are giving the message to your assistant that they're not important, and this should be the most important person in your life. So I think it should come back to that. That's kind of my rant done. Yes. Hallie.
I mean, exactly. I totally agree.
I mean, you guys talked about that in your book about, I think it was Adam that said that, how important that meeting is.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's like that's the tone of the entire week, entire month. I mean, I can't do my job without that effectively without that meeting. And that's when we do talk about, you know, we used to, right? Talk about expectations or things that might need to be changed or where we're going.
Well, and do you feel like when you first started, if you can remember, like I remember my first day, I remember how that went. When you guys first started, you didn't know what you were doing. Like, how long do you really feel like it took you before you felt like, all right, I know what I'm doing, and now I'm going to push to like grow the business? Because I can tell you that took me after a year. And so if somebody had hired me before a year, that would have been dumb.
So I came into the real estate business after 10 years of managing 7 offices of a mortgage business. So I thought I knew the real estate business because I did everything. I underwrote loans, I closed loans, I did the whole entire process. And I came in and, oh my God, there was so much I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So I had operations background, I had real estate experience, and I would say it took me a year to get my legs under me to transition from needing direction to me becoming the leader of the operations side of the business. Mm-hmm. And so I imagine if you're coming into the business with less real estate experience or less life experience, that it may take a little bit longer. It can be accelerated by good, clear communication of vision and goals and standards by the agent. I don't think it has to take a year, but it takes a year of commitment, I think, between the two parties, the leader and the administrator.
Absolutely.
So Anita she is asking if we would be willing to share our 5-year plan that we wrote out. I know I did write out a 5-year plan. I only have my current 5-year plan right now. I should have that old one.
I don't think I have any written down. I mean, I do my future self, but I don't have like and I do my annual goals, but I don't think I have like a I personally don't have a very specific 5-year at this point. I'm in a season in my life when I'm just trying to enjoy my life. And I'm not pushing too hard at the moment on multiple things, but that's just me.
Well, I didn't ask you about that from the book too, Hallie, and we're probably pushing up against a little bit of time here, but I know that that was a huge life transition for you over the past 2 years that you kind of hit, and I think this will resonate with many in the group, that you hit a little bit of burnout, and then thought maybe you were going to step away from this world for a little while, and stepped away and then ended up coming back. So what advice would you give to people who are maybe in that burnout place? What changes have you made as a result of that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, and I think I thought I was having the conversations with Adam, but I don't know if I didn't know exactly what was going on with myself. Probably, like we talked about the whole self-awareness thing. I didn't even know like what the heck I was doing half the time with myself. I was just working
your tail off.
Yeah. So like, I didn't really have that clarity to even understand what was going on really with me. And so therefore I wasn't having the conversations I needed to have with Adam. I would kind of touch on some things, but I don't think I even knew how to explain really what I was feeling or going through at the time. So my advice is to make sure you give yourself some space, even if it's like a day a week. I mean, I probably was working 7 days a week for many years, to make sure you give yourself the space to understand what it is you actually want, and then say that to your mega, your executive, whatever. I mean, if I had told Adam I needed a month off, he would have given me a month off, no questions asked, right? I did not have the language I didn't know what I was feeling in order to be able to say that, and I wish I had. And again, if I had given myself some space previously, first of all, I wouldn't have needed that month off, or I would have been able to say, I need a month off. And asking for help. I should have asked for help years earlier than I did.
So how does somebody do that? So you're in a situation now where you guys have been in a relationship for 8 years. So even if those conversations are a little maybe intimidating or uncomfortable, you're at a place where you do them anyway because you have this great relationship. So if I'm an EA on a team and I've only been on the team for a year or 2 years, and we're still in the early stages of our relationship, like what's your advice for those situations?
Yeah, I know it sounds so simple, but I would still have the conversation. But in that case, I would probably go into it with with a very clear solution in trying to really understand what it is I needed. So I wasn't just saying, I'm burned out, I need time off. Well, what does that actually mean? Do you need to make sure you just leave 3 days a week at 5 p.m.? Does that mean you maybe need somebody to cover the phones on the weekend? Like with very specific, with a specific ask, because how can they say no to something that specific? And here's with people I coach, and Christy and Linzee, I'm sure this goes for you too. I can't think of one person that I've encouraged and coached through having a conversation where their executive has said no to them. They've always gotten what they've wanted or more.
Or it may end up being a situation where you discover that the match isn't the match that you both want. One of my pages that I starred in your book was about burnout, actually, now that we're talking about this. Burnout happens for 3 reasons. You're not growing, you're out of alignment with your natural behavior, or you're not having success for an extended period of time. It doesn't come from working too many hours. Like, we all have those things we love to do. Like, I could plan my trip to Paris for 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and never get tired, right? So when you're doing things you love, so it may be that they're in the wrong seat on the bus if there's burnout.
I'm actually really glad that you mentioned that, because I forgot that point, because that was also that was the other piece for me, was totally not in alignment, because I had grown so much working with Adam for 7 years or whatever it was, 7 years at the time, that I was no longer that person that started on the team 7 years ago. So totally out of alignment. And as soon as we hired our EA, which was about 1.5 years ago, my life changed in many, many ways. So between taking a break and hiring an EA,
total life change.
Yeah.
Linzee, to go back to Anita's question about the 5-year plan, I think you have to just start. So when I did my 5-year transition plan, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know where to start. And I just started writing things down. Start with like, where do I want to be? If it's 5 years from now and I'm like so happy every day, what am I doing? Who am I with? How much money am I making? What am I spending my time on? What's my favorite part of the day? Where am I living? Like just general, like sort of free-form journaling questions. And then from that, you can go back and construct a plan. Well, in order to have that life, what things need to be put in place? How much money do I need to make? How much money do I need to save? What skills do I need to learn? What habits do I need to develop? Who do I need to be that person in 5 years? And then you can get granular. I think we get stuck sometimes on the operations side because we're really detail-oriented people and we want to have this like perfect plan, but you can just sort of freeform it out. And once you kind of discover like, oh, this is where I could be, you'll figure out how to get there. It's not the getting there that's the hard part. For me, it wasn't. It was, I wasn't sure where I wanted to be, but I just sort of started dreaming about it. Notice things like you said earlier, during your day, when is your energy high and when is your energy low? When are you like really in your flow and when are you like feeling dragged down? Those are just some thought questions.
And you know what's funny? If you can't get started with just journaling, I would do the priority box within the KPA. So at the very end of the Keller personality assessment, you would go in there and you would totally just map that out for yourself, follow the directions, because you have to think about career and you have to think about money.
Tell us what that is, because some people on the call may not have gone through career visioning and may not know what that is.
Yep. So at the end, if you actually order a Keller personality assessment, you can order it. If you're within Keller Williams, you can order it through your MCA. If you are not, you can contact me and we'll help you. But what you would do is essentially go to the very back of that, and there is a priorities box, or they might call it motivational box. Yeah. And you would, you know, just literally there's directions. You can step by step do that. And I think if you work through that, it'll at least give you an idea of 2 other things that are really important to you that you help use to make decisions in your life and that are priorities in your life, and then start to map it out from there. Might be good.
I actually, the KPA didn't exist right when I was first started working with Adam. So I did this with him 6 months ago, I think, that whole motivational thing.
Yep.
And for me, the biggest aha was that, okay, minus like very little things like improving my health, I was actually pretty much living that already. So I'm not saying that I don't have any goals and don't have other things to do, but like I'm in this place right now where like I'm actually doing things every day that I really enjoy doing. And it took a while to get here, but it's a pretty cool place to be in. Yeah.
Love it.
Well, and Christy, you're a big fan of vision boards too. So I would consider using something like that too.
I love those.
Absolutely. Yep. I talk about that in my class. Super passionate. I think we're going to wrap up because I think we told people an hour, but before that, I want each of us to just tell, where can you find us? What's your, whatever info you want to give, your website, we'll give the book information. And I know, Hallie, you have a blog. So Linzee, where can we find you?
Yeah, you can just message me on Facebook, which I'm slower to get back to. So if for some reason I am not on there fast enough, then you can email me at Linzee, which is Linzee, at cipraniconsulting.com, which is CIPRANI consulting.
And that's your website, Ciprani Consulting. And if you have referrals.
Yep, I'm in the Westchester, Pennsylvania area, and we have a team that's called Roundtable at the moment, and you can find all that information on my Facebook too.
Awesome. Hallie, where can we find you?
Oh, everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You message me, I'll get back to you at some point. The best way to get in touch with me, I'm slower on Facebook too. Somehow those get lost for all the time. Yeah. But email me, Hallie at adamhergenrother.com. I'll put it in the comments under this video because that's hard to spell. And if you are interested in the book, you can go to founderandforcemultiplier.com. And my blog, which I'm sorely behind on my blog currently, but it's leadandassist.com. There's some content up there. I'm working on adding some more.
That's good. There's actually a lot of good content. I always share it when I teach my Be a Boss class on Lead and Assist. So you can find me at Ops Boss Coaching. You can email me, Christy@opsbosscoaching.com. And if you're interested, you need to mark down on your calendars October 18th through 20th, our Ops Boss Leader Retreat in the Washington, D.C. area. Ciprani Consulting will be one of our platinum sponsors. And we'll put the link for the book in the comments. I want you guys to all read it, and maybe we'll get your ahas circled back later in the group. And I want to thank you guys for joining us. Linzee, Hallie, I'm so psyched that we got to have this conversation after so many years. To be in the same room again is truly my pleasure. It's been really fun to watch what you guys are doing. You guys are powerhouses. And I want to thank you guys for all joining us and giving us your questions, and still post questions in the comments, because I know these guys are super active in the group and they'll come back and answer them. So thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Linzee, for doing this, and take us out.
Thanks, guys.
We down?
We should be down.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your vulnerability and transparency and willing to give time. I feel like you guys have achieved so much, and I'm just so passionate about pouring into the people in the group and around the country who I think if they know that there's a possibility out there, they can make it happen, and some of them just need help creating a new possible. So thank you.
Thank you for coordinating this. And
I know you're the best.
And sorry about my dog walking around in the background.
Oh my gosh, I'm surprised it didn't bark. That's perfect. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. It was fun.
Awesome. All right, see you guys later. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.